All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here today. So before we start, let me acknowledge that we're meeting today in the land of the Ghana people and acknowledge and pay my respects to their elders, present, past, and emerging. My name is Rodrigo Praino. I'm Professor of Politics and Director of the Jeff Bleich Centre for Democracy and Disruptive Technologies here at Flinders University. We are very excited today to hold this event, although it is a very, very serious event, as you know. The United States is voting as we speak. The first polls are going to start closing in the next hour or so in the US, and we are going to start seeing results trickle in the counting process starting. You can follow what is happening this second live in the screen right next to you. Although as of now, I don't think there is any relevant information because, again, all of the polling places are still open in the US at this stage. So nothing to report from that point of view. So what we'll do today, I know a lot of you, so there's some members of the public here, some staff from Flinders, some Flinders students, and there is also a number of visitors from high schools that came here to talk about the election today. So for the high school guests, we'll start with our short meeting here, and we'll talk about the elections. I'll start that in just a second. And then you have a workshop for you upstairs. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Toilets are to the side of the stairs, so you go back and you go that way, you'll find the toilet facilities. In case of emergency or in case of a fire, the way out is the way you came in, so down the stairs. Do not use the lifts, not only because it's dangerous in case of fire or emergency, but because they don't take you outside at all in this building. So make sure you go through the stairs, down and out, away from any danger if there is any. So Americans are voting. Very big event today. It has been described as the biggest election of our lifetimes. And you know, some of us are older and have seen several elections. They're still the biggest elections in the US in our lifetime. How many of you know how the American elections work? Raise your hand. Few hands up. How many of you are confused by how the American elections work? Many more hands up. That is the same answer I used to get when I taught this in the United States. Americans don't actually understand how the system works, especially when it comes to presidential elections. So you've heard everyone is talking about the number 270. 270, path to 270. Whoever gets 270 wins. Now, what is 270? 270 is the number of electoral college votes that you need to get elected President of the United States. Now, what is this Electoral College? It's an institution that the founding fathers of the US created in the 18th century, so a long, long time ago. And, you know, let's just call it for what it is. It's essentially a way to make sure that the people don't decide directly who runs the country. It was an experiment with democracy. It was the beginning of an experiment with democracy, so they wanted to put a layer between the people and the decision. That's what the Electoral College is. How does it work? Well, every single American state, you know there are 50 states in the United States. Every single American state has assigned a number of Electoral College votes. How do they get to that? It is the same number of their congressional delegation. So the US Congress, the Parliament of the United States, if you want, has two chambers, the Senate and the House. The Senate has 100 senators. There are 2 senators for each American state. So no matter how many people live in your state, how big or how small you are, you've got 2 senators, all right? So that's one. The other number is the number of members of the House. The House of Representatives has 435 members. Now, those are apportioned countrywide based on population. So states with a higher number of people living in them have more congressional seats than states with low population. So for instance, the most populous state in the US is California. California has 54 electoral college votes. 2 votes because he has 2 senators, 52 votes because it elects 52 members of the U.S. House of Representatives. All right? Now, those of you who are passionate about math are going, well, but 535 plus 100 is, 435 plus 100 is 535. 270 is not half of 535. That's because Washington, D.C. has also 3 electoral college votes. The District of Columbia, if you've been to D.C., you probably read in their license plates, taxation without representation. That's their motto. They don't elect anyone to the U.S. Congress. However, they have been given the right to vote for president. And because the minimum number of electoral college votes any state has is 3, because each has 2 senators and at least 1 representative, D.C. was assigned 3 electoral college votes. So there's a total of 438 electoral college votes. Whomever gets the majority, the absolute majority of this number 438, which is 270, gets elected President of the United States. Now, think of the election as, here you've got, the 50 states of the US. Think of the election as being 51 separate elections. Each state holds their own. Whichever candidate gets the absolute, whichever candidate gets most votes in each state carries all of the electoral college votes of that state. So whomever gets more votes in California between Harris and Trump will get 54 electoral college votes. Now, being America and being a federal country, there's always an exception. The exceptions here are Maine and Nebraska. They don't give all of the electoral college votes to one candidate. They apportion them proportionally. They are very small states with very few electoral college votes, so we basically ignore the fact that they do that. Although this year, Nebraska is important because Nebraska has 3. 2 are apparently going to 2 are apparently going to Trump, and 1 is going to Harris. Now, here in our amazing interactive board, developed here at Flinders University by Wing at the Flinders New Venture Institute, this is essentially a version of what you see on TV at CNN working, but it's touchless. So instead of having to go and touch the board, we do it from a distance. You've got already some states colored in red, some states colored in blue, some states colored in yellow. Why is that? Because we actually know already, even though we know nothing about what the votes that have been cast today and that they're still casting in the US, we already know with a pretty high degree of certainty how most American states are going to vote. All right? So red is the color of the Republican Party, so that's Donald Trump. Blue is the color of the Democratic Party, so that is Kamala Harris. Interestingly, you see a sea of red and very little blue just on the coasts, but remember, the coasts are where most people live, right? So the most populated states are the blue ones in the East Coast and the West Coast. There are, large territory but small population-wise states in the middle. This is how America will most likely vote. The yellow states are the ones that we have no idea what is happening today. They are what we call swing states. There are 7 of them, and they are Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. Georgia is marked red there, but it should be yellow actually, because Georgia is also a swing state, so we're going to do it without touching anything. And then Nevada and Arizona are the 7 states that will decide everything. Now, why are they going to decide everything? Because these states have been voting Democratic, Republican in previous elections, and all the polls we have in these states indicate that the race is tight and very close. Now, it has never been as close as this. Everything that we know about these 7 states is within margin of error, which in, political science means we don't actually know. Some seem to be leaning Democratic, some seem to be leaning Republican, but we have no idea what is happening. Moreover, pretty much everything we know about American politics and about electoral and political behavior has gone out of the window in the past few years. Why? Because Donald Trump is different. That's my professional opinion. What he's done, the way he behaves, the things he does, the way he carries himself, the things he says are different from any other candidate in American history. There's never been anyone that does the things he does. And so it has completely changed the way people behave. For example, the one thing we know today, because we can watch, the lines and everything else, and the media has been reporting, is that there is apparently going to be record turnout in the US. Now, Americans don't have compulsory voting like we do. When there's an election, we in Australia have to go vote, right? We are required to cast a vote. Americans are not. On top of that, they vote on a Tuesday. Today is Wednesday here, but it's Tuesday in the US, right? It's not over the weekend. People work on Tuesdays, right? There are many, many states in the US that have no provision whatsoever to allow someone to go vote while they're working. So in many American states, if a citizen wants to go vote, they need to take time off without pay. Now, you can imagine how hard that is, especially for someone who needs their salary for a living, right? So lower socioeconomic voters have a harder time voting than higher socioeconomic voters. So traditionally, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would stand here and say, if there is high turnout, the Democrats are going to win. Why? Because these lower socioeconomic class voters who typically can't go vote because of all of these problems that they incur are overwhelmingly Democrat, right? So higher turnout means Democrats are winning. However, there are groups in the US that also decide not to vote traditionally. For example, the extreme religious right. Those are people that typically don't go to the polls. They say, I don't care about politics, I don't care about elections, it's not something that we are interested in, we just don't show up and don't vote. Donald Trump has been appealing to these groups and telling them, you need to go vote. Why? Because in some of these states, particularly Georgia and North Carolina, but also Western Pennsylvania, that is another swing state, there's significant numbers of people in this category. And so a small increase in their turnout could mean that Donald Trump has an advantage as well. This election has been very divisive, right? There are two main issues that I think are going to be determinant today. One is the economy. The exit polls that they are reporting, now we can't see them on the screen right now, but they've been reporting this morning, show that over 70% of Americans are dissatisfied with how the economy is going in the US. 70%. Now, a number like this in a regular election, right? 70% of the people dissatisfied with the economy, that should be a landslide victory for the person who is not in office, for the person who is not in the party that is in office. So that should be a Republican landslide. But there's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is polarizing. Donald Trump is love or hate is a love or hate type of candidate, right? So what is the Trump effect when 70% of the population is dissatisfied with the economy? No one knows. I don't know. Pollsters don't know. No one actually knows. Another important issue is women's rights. Trump has been atrocious on women's rights throughout his presidency, after his presidency, through the campaign, etc., etc., etc. Women are the majority of the electorate in the United States. There are more women voters than there are men voters. Women are also the majority in all 7 swing states. Now, what we do know from polling is that Donald Trump does very well with men. Kamala Harris does very well with women. The problem is that how many of these people are actually going to go to the polling station? How many of them are going to vote? Right? Are they answering sincerely to the polling questions? How are those polls conducted? Was someone listening when they were answering? Right? The silent voter, the person who doesn't want their partner to know how they're voting, for example, could be a phenomenon. We don't know these things, right? There's no way to know. So what happens in selling the plan and selling the candidacy to women versus men could determine this election. Immigration was another issue. It doesn't seem to be that high from the exit polls in the minds of Americans, just like foreign policy. Strangely enough, even though the world is on fire, Americans seem to not particularly care and seem to not be making a decision today based on foreign policy. It is the last issue, according to the exit polls that I saw this morning driving into here. Now, what is going to happen today? So there are multiple paths to winning 270 Electoral College votes, both for Trump and for Harris. The easiest path to 270, I'm going to try to use the touchless board. Let's see how good okay, maybe I will not try to use the board because of the sound. Can you do it for me? So the easiest path to Harris is for her to win the so-called blue wall. So that would be Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So if Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania turn blue, wait 1 second before you do Pennsylvania. So if she wins Michigan and Wisconsin, she still does not get to 270. If she wins Pennsylvania on top of that, that is enough to take her to 270. I think there's an issue with the count in the bottom because it's not showing 270 in there.
Oh, the count's not going to be showing anyone that's leaning in.
Okay, can you turn the lean ones into dark blue, please? So if she wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, that takes her over 270. She needs to carry all 3 to do that, right? That is the most clear path towards victory for Harris. Now, Donald Trump has a little bit of a higher road to take. So he would have to win more than the 3. Even if he gets all 3, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, he does not get to 270. So he needs to bring in either Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, or North Carolina to go over the line. Now, the other thing that I'd like to point out at this stage is that the prediction we have is just, what we are very confident will happen. But you saw that there were some states that were in light blue and light red, and they were messing with our count, so I asked them to be turned into dark blue and dark red. However, if we were to end up with a different result in one of these states, all bets are off, right? And which stage you would have to sit down and look what happened. For example, if Florida has over 30 Electoral College votes, we think it's going to go for Donald Trump, but the numbers are not as solid as other states. So if something happens to a place like Florida, then all bets are off, and we no longer know how the election will play out. So there's a lot to think about at this stage. There's a lot for us to watch. I think it's going to be very interesting to see. The other issue that I haven't mentioned is, of course, Donald Trump has been laying the ground to try to not accept the results of the election. He's been talking about fraud. He's been talking about cheating over and over again. Now, typically, when you listen to a political scientist, talk about current political events, we are very careful. We don't want to lean in one side towards one side or the other, and we want to consider all the positions together and be neutral. Now, when it comes to elections being cheated, there is no neutrality. It is not true. There is absolutely no evidence that there is cheating in American elections. Even worse, I start hearing people in Australia talking about our elections being rigged. There is no such thing. There is absolutely no evidence of election rigging in any Western democracy. So that is something that Trump has been talking since 2020. He's been talking for 4 years. He refuses to accept that he lost the election of 2020. That's part of all of the issues that ensued in the United States. He refuses to accept that he lost that election. He's already talking about cheating and irregularities that don't exist. He has 5,000 lawyers on call today, ready to go contest election results. So what prediction can I come up with? Well, if there is a Donald Trump victory, Kamala Harris will go out there, concede the election. There might be some challenges in court because, everyone wants to make sure, because it's going to be very, very close. It could be a few hundred or few thousand votes deciding one of the swing states and therefore the entire election. If Donald Trump wins, Kamala Harris will most likely concede the election, and that's that. If Kamala Harris wins, I would be very surprised if Donald Trump went out there conceding the election. It could be weeks and weeks because the process doesn't finish today. Today they finished the counting. Then, because of the Electoral College, the process is much more complicated than that. What happens is that the votes are counted today, then the electors, the people who cast the Electoral College votes, meet in mid-December in the capital of their own state and cast that vote, that then is sent to Washington and is certified by the US Congress on the 6th of January. All right? So the actual formal process will not finish until the 6th of January. Until that is done, anything can happen in between. And everyone is very, very scared and apprehensive about what may happen at this stage. Now, question. 538 is not an even number, is it? Sorry, it's not an odd number, it's an even number, isn't it? So have you asked yourself what happens if there's a tie? If there is a tie, the votes get cast in mid-December. They go to be certified by the incoming US Congress, so the new US Congress elected today, on the 6th of January, because members of the House swear in on the 3rd of January, so it's the new members that are there. And then they go ahead and they cast a vote for president in the House and vice president in the Senate. They can only choose among the 3 top receivers of Electoral College votes, which in this case is going to be Harris and Trump. So they can only vote for Harris or Trump. But the House votes by state delegations. Chances are that no matter how the election goes today, that the advantage in terms of state delegations in the US House of Representatives on the 6th of January will be Republican. So if none of the 2 candidates gets to 270 with the Electoral College vote, the House decides, and my prediction at this stage, pending the results of the election today in the US Congress, is that House will vote for Donald Trump to be President of the United States. Now, go explain that to the citizenship. Also because another prediction I can make is that I believe that no matter who wins the Electoral College vote, Kamala Harris will get the majority of the popular vote today. So more Americans will have wanted her to be president than him, yet she may or may not become president regardless of that. Why? Because, California is voting for Kamala Harris. We know that. Every vote she gets in California, over 50% of the vote plus 1 vote is irrelevant to determine the result of the election. So if she gets 99% of the California vote, that will give her a lot of advantage in this number that means nothing, which is the popular vote, as the Americans call, right? And so It has happened before. Hillary Clinton got the popular vote and Donald Trump was elected. It has happened also, Al Gore got the popular vote. Bush was elected in 2000. So it has happened before in U.S. history. So that is a very, very possible scenario that becomes complicated to justify in terms of democracy, right? So you now have a workshop to attend to. I hope you enjoy the workshop. I hope you enjoy the day here. We'll have panel discussions all day. I hope that now you know a little bit more about how what we are watching today works. Thank you for being here. The next panel is going to be at 11. And, you know, if there is anything relevant, we will get the microphone and start commenting straight away. Thank you.